Tarnished of no renown, famed elder lord versus Asura, mightiest demigod of his verse, wrathful, pillar of rage, unyielding and unrelenting for his daughter's sake, a man that's anger booms so wildly he's seen as a demon and nightmare, one of the defenders with the 8 guardian generals for the planet known as Gaia to defeat the vile monstrosity that is the Goma and its crater, a man that burst through nirvana, a man that pushed beyond every possible obstacle in his way, even his own technical akin family, for his daughter. Man even defeated his own creator so that his daughter never has to cry in the world he made for her. GOAT, one of my favorite characters of all of fiction, my favorite MC of video games, aka main character / protagonist, and most importantly, one of the angriest and most powerful characters in fiction. Asura wrath is unlike any other seen in most occasions. The Kratos of his verse, a beast, a tank, an absolute unit with fiery hatred for all those scum that he slays. The famed GOAT of when it comes down to angry hands. If you have been a fan of this channel for a long time, you know way back, pushing 3 to 4 years ago, I made a versus battle of this exact, concept of putting the Tarnished versus Asura against each other. But I did not like how I did that video, not necessarily because my end-all verdict or the way I did it entirely was set in stone wrong, but I thought it was a little bit too unneededly long. I thought how my information was for the Tarnished and Asura was not the best conclusively, and there are some new mixed take arguments. Obviously, the Tarnished has grown. There's new information, there's new lore, there's new study, and I've went on my way to become, I would say, a very much elevated power scaler ever since those moments. And I think it is of not only my greatest sense of duty, but as my greatest sense of passion to put together something of this interesting form of obviously versus battle that you see on the title and on screen, to tell you why, again, in my end-all verdict, why you see on the title, why the Tarnished versus Asura is completely debatable. Hope you guys will enjoy. Let's go ahead and get it in.
And one other, whom grace would again bless, a Tarnished of no renown. Cross the fog to the lands between, to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord.
Tarnished. How many times are you gonna come back to this channel? A lot. I see it. As you guys know, across the board, the Tarnished is easily a universe to universal plus person, even if you want a low end from different, scuffs of scaling that would be putting him in consistently the credit of being a multi-solar system plus to galaxy level dude to beyond. He scales to multiple different form of concepts, scales to different form of outer gods, to even over a different form of gray potential that stands to a higher regard calling of different hacks, capabilities, versatility, AP, pit for pit, bang for bang. He's been able to defeat 2 dragon lords, defeat a concept incarnate, defeat people that control and or utilize the power of an outer god, and as well defeat a person that is amped by an outer, god to the greatest form in the sense of goddess of Rot Millennia, and has been able to defeat, people that are amped by a god in the sense being, Prime Radon and Consort Radon, not only powered by Mikola, but in a reformed, arguable better body than his actual normal sense of Prime whenever he was of that same stature, because not only being in a reformed, resurrected body of Moog, but as well being with greater form of stats, power and other stuff like that. And it's just ridiculously cracked. The Tarnished is a character with an endless regard of weaponry, hacks, and capabilities, from having conceptual erasure, having the capability to build up something that does twice as much damage than anything else has ever seen, has crazy different regard of weaponry and hacks, armors, craftsmanship, different matter of techniques, galore feats, statements, and scaling that put him on a ridiculous scuff. He's easily one of, not the most powerful former from software, the Soulsborne character like shit, and his speed is ridiculous. He's able to fight somebody in a plane devoid of time, meaning that his speed is easily, from most cases in regard, being inaccessible, a person that can exist in a plane without time or without finite form of time, to maybe even measurable. If you think he's beyond time, he's able to hurt a person that by existing distorts time. And yeah, the Tarnished, simply put, is one of the most crazy regarded dudes. Again, he's a multi-plethora of weapons, capabilities, magic, shit along those lines, of different forms and or additions of power that he can use. And unlike in my last video with the could Elden Ring win the tournament of power, shameless plug, which also my man Clips 101 was in, right? He no longer has to be worried about the case of killing people, so he can utilize greater deadly techniques with Frenzied Flame, Rot, Black Flame, Destructo Disc. Pretty much he can use a lot more of the most archaic, destructive, cracked magic like ever seen. And yeah, like he's one of the most ridiculously high, formed people to what people would expect, and definitely one of the most like robust, ridiculously rack of all trades dude. And again, I've talked about him multiple times on the channel and talked about him on multiple occasions.
Easily will be massively faster than light to be able to have contact with stars, and is said to go and shatter them. Star Scourge Radahn, in the case of his young, 2 Prime Monarch will be the strongest of the demigods physically, and most importantly, Melania, the undefeated swordswoman, who obviously you're able to scale to, move around, dodge, and stumble, and dang near every form of demigod or threat that is actually a threat, obviously, to the Tarnished, will be scaling massively faster than light because they have light moves, dodging light in game, being easily, ridiculously fast, you're able to fuck light, move around light, use light, all that shit. So, yeah, I mean, there's any mainline spells of carrying magic and others can be considered to be that. When it comes down to AP, at his lowest end, he'd be multi-solar system to galaxy, right, at his lowest end, because he scales over Star Scourge Radahn, Nerf, Melania, and multi other characters that will be scaling in that strong form scale. He's able to go and scale over Rani, in the case of a universal pocket dimension, used to go ahead and defend her mother, Renala, and rebirth in the case of her prime. And this is said within the Elden Ring novelization and scans here, and is able to go ahead and go beyond different cases of hacks and stuff that will be able to destroy a person fundamentally on an outer wall level, and is obviously multiple times growing and just perfecting against the odds over time. Granted, this is all a matter of gameplay, as realistically, lore accurate Tarnished should just solo every boss without even a fucking sweat because of the speed scaling I'm about to get more into, but simply at the end of the tenure after defeating all these different people, Malekith the Black Blade, Fire Giant with a little essence of Outer God, being able to defeat Godfrey, First Elden Lord, and his true form Hoarlu, and obviously defeating Radagon, aka Queen Medica, Elden Beast, and every other person would easily be scaling to Universal. Had comments saying that no one in Elden Ring is Universal. This is false. The reason why they would be scaling Universal is because of multiple things. Because of the infinite chart and raining of different case of highs and power scaling pool to be able to scale 2 people that have essences of Outer God or beyond Rani and magic. If any character, which is pretty much like 70 to 80% of Elden Ring, is stronger than Rani, whose magic is so strong he's able to create that, and magic that scales to that, would be making them universal. Meaning Radahn, at its highest and natural scale, is universal. Melania is universal. Rykard and magic hypothetically is universal. Any of that case. This is not entirely consistent, but the argument that they could scale on an infinite pool of magic, which then would scale them AP-wise with simple math to be able to be universal, is not too surprising. But even if you don't want to take that match, Queen Medica has been skilled as goddess of the lands between to be higher scaled than any other person within the lands between and any form of their concepts of magic, being universal concepts and capabilities and heights, as she scales over the case potential of outer gods within her whim and power, with this being said. Meaning because the Tarnished is able to beat her / Radagon to go in order, because Radagon and Queen Medica are the same person, with this being said, and Radagon arguably, to some people, is arguably stronger because he's the enforcer side of Queen Medica, would make the Tarnished easily universal. He also defeated Elden Beast, who was literally the greater will and order of the lands between, meaning that Elden Beast would have to be universal to be literally the essence, the concept of the Elden Ring itself, as the Earth Tree is easily universal, and the flying of it through the case of the, power of the Fire Giant's Forge, which obviously is hailed to within the power of the Outer God, aka the thing the Fire Giant uses, would make Fire Giant's power, at least in its potential higher standards, and make Fire Giant universal. You could argue that universal. So it's pretty consistent that a lot of characters, to a great few of the most powerful characters, are easily universal. This should also go to other characters of Tarnished's face, like obviously Melania when she goes into Goddess of Ra, Star Scourge Radahn most likely when it comes down to him, in the case of the Shadow of the Earth Tree being empowered by Miquella, who does actually retain a goddess-like essence, even in the case of him obviously trying to ascend to God, was being said to call him a goddess, but I'm saying like in comparison to his mother, Queen Medica, and other characters. So without a doubt, he's universal.
Asura, the demigod turned into a wrathful pillar of might. Standing for duty, principle, and purity, he fought on the side of a vast empire heaven, standing against the great demonic force known as the Goma that terrorized the planet Gaia. He fought as an 8 guardian general, a demigod born into play with the power of basically a chi energy force that made him the arcana of wrath incarnate, a literal Kyle Shin in every essence of demonic force. But he fought on the side of good. He was the hothead, but he had a beloved wife. He had a brother-in-law known as Yasha, and even though it could have been a greater good with the infinite potential of his daughter, who was a priestess that gave literally hope, power, and instilled the will and virtues that other people did not have on the battlefield, He did not want his daughter to be a tool, and he didn't want his daughter fighting on the side of a very brutal warfare that was the fight against the demons. But instead of actually respecting his wishes, his fellow comrades, aka the kin of family, and the other demigods, aka guardian angels, including his brother-in-law, literally inadvertently not only betrayed his own fucking niece, but as well his literal sister, a snake, even if he once was seen as a brother to Asura. Literally disregarded everything he did. He was slaved by their surrogate, Zeus, head honcho, the commander, who no longer was seen as a commander, but literally King Deus, as they no longer were the 8 guardian generals that became the 7 deities. Asura was crashing down to earth, sent down like a literal blazing meteor, but then came back from the dead with fury in his eyes, re-invoked his memories, and became a walking behemoth of retribution, getting vengeance back for his wife, getting vengeance for his daughter, and being a living representation of don't fuck with nobody's kids because they might come back more stronger than ever. Asura's wrath, indeed, eternal and unyielding. Besides the arguable glaze, this man Asura has stood against the most impressionable odds to be seen as not only walky and ridiculous to possibly higher in scale, but he scales to the most ridiculous opposition and is the definition of a warrior that stares death in his eyes and literally would go about full means of thrashing his cheeks beyond compare. The famed bringer of devastation to all opposition. At lowest end, he would be multi-country to multi-continental, of shaking literally the planet and or as well crossroads, standing against the core of not only the Goma and Viltra, the dark demonic force, with his brother-in-law, who became brother again after realizing the disgusting foul that was being going on, to force a little girl, even as a priestess, to give hope to the warriors fighting alongside her, to be literally a slave bound to the Brahmastra, which pretty much is a citadel that empowers all of the, hopes and faith and prayers of the mortals, right? In this sense, right, even being a little bit empowered by his own daughter in chain, he was able to help in defeating this being and literally purifying the planet. In this case, this would easily be a low end, that type of feat, but you could easily get this to be planetary as well. With that being said, he defeated Wise, aka Big Fat Nigga, right? Who literally tried to go a meteor clamp him down with one finger after turning into, by all accord, the literal size to even bigger than the planet. He went about with building up a bunch of kinetic energy, blowing him apart and literally disintegrating him, which easily is a large planetary feat, but all the calculations put on screen, the fact that he takes up not only a planet, he takes up a moon, and even mixed argument by every other accord, literal multiple upon multiple possible suns, if he is that big to where he encapsulates not only Earth, but the moon, could get easily a dwarf star level feat at bare minimum. But then multiple times overscaling over multiple people that scale over Wizen, he would easily, after vanquishing August, killing Karo, killing literally the man that slayed his own wife for no reason, absolute fucking edgelord, and as well scales over Yasha, who's able to scale to something that was said impossible capability to also defeat Viltra, and Viltra as a being would scale over all these 7 deities in general at face value. That indefinitely would make him multiple times a multi-dwarf star level to large multi-dwarf star level character at bare minimum. But then this comes Chakravartin, the original mainline seen as person to pretty much be OP for a lot of people in mixed video game eyes, as he literally is an evil version of Buddha, the top dog, the man that literally created everything that you see in Gerudo and Asura's Wrath, the pretty much Omni Lord. But in this case, Chakravartin wanted to go about reinstating a new means of order in this world and pretty much absolving all of the world, as he feel like it is not coursing the way that he planned it and or wanted, absolving literally everything that Asura fought for right then and there. With that being said, Asura will go about the means of showcasing not only impregnable will, not only the most ridiculous love for his daughter, as not going to disregard what he fought for, disregard what he literally bled, killed, and dripped tears from his eyes for, disregard the entire memory and whole configurement of the most boundless fury that can never ever be quenched. He's not going to let some random guy claiming to be the creator define the world he made for his daughter. Which, because he's defining world as this would easily, without a shadow of a doubt, make him easily a universal like person. As again, you have to remember that because world in this case in Chakravartin's plan, especially as the seen as almost omniscient in his world, greater stem creator, it would translate to a world more than the case of obviously, just a planet. He throws multiple things at this dude that would be way beyond a planet, which is the consistent multi-dwarf star level stuff. He's destroying literal suns, stars. He inhabits multiple galaxies behind him, which should get him actually multi-galaxy. Just off of that, he scales over multiple things. This man Chakravartin does. That is that low end represented here. But when he pops out and does greater stuff, and as well says other things that can imply more, which I'm going to get into, and the fact that, again, he's seen as the creator of this world in context universe, universal AP to even higher greater universal is scaling over his true greater form, this black and gray Oreo crayon built ass supreme version of him. This would easily slate this man Chakravartin as a being of ridiculous magnitude off rip within his being in this context. So for these statements about him being as reasonable, yes, seen at face value as evil Buddha, he does have statements about saying that he is the god of the wheel of life, and a bunch of different intricate different conversations of concepts and different unique tales of Buddhism, Hinduism, and multiple different plague of different unique takes and tales evolving not only Asian multiple form of religion, mythology, folklore, and even legend. All these different tales and different tangles of that could very much sum up this man Chakravartin being from easily low multiversal to even complex multiversal as being a god that transcends all different atmospheres of life. And this would be the lowest scale play to where you would see someone like, Buddha scale to other people that scale these different manifests of this, and even a low-balled Sun Wukong. But if it's an obvious Chakravartin, even though his maybe intention is to be in baseness to this character, does not demonstrate any feats on that level in truth, and is just a statement that very much like other statements in different contexts does not demonstrate him to be on this. And I've greater cases, explain this in my shameless plug, Kratos vs. Asura video, or debunking the arguments for Kratos and Asura's video, which is where this greater talks come from. But even then, if you want to say that he is at that level just because of the statement in play, aka more saying that he's a god of multiple multiverse and hypothetical perspective when talking about mixed bag worlds, you can get him to that level possibly. When it comes down to speed, he easily should be multiple times faster than light at multiple high-end ray of shit, scaling to the speed of somebody crossing the moon at a pretty ridiculous distance and then coming down to Earth, scaling to a guy that literally blitzes around light back to back, blitzing around different firelight, crossing from literally Earth to a surrogate planet in itself, and as well literally breaches multiple doors for ridiculous, massively faster than light speeds consistently across the board. He as well, because of the fact that he was able to scale all around Naraka, which is pretty much the underworld or akin Tartarus of his world, he was able to literally scale over infinite pillars and literally escape a place that has a infinite, space and obviously width and entire construction. He was able to transcend this place, which is obviously universal, as it's a form of afterlife, which is more consistent, universal stuff, easily right there to considerably say as he's beyond someone like this man Chakravartin, who created that, not just by bare minimum, but the fact that he scales over that world in its speed and is able to clear an infinite size place, that would easily make him be infinite speed at a bare minimum. Some other mixed scale speed that people have tried to say is that the mixed Chakravartin's mixed hacks to possibly slow down time or do some mixed possible gravity or force implication capabilities. Have tried to say that he slows down time, and this man Asura reacts to that. Not only is that a very mixed kind of flimsy wild like stretch of speaking, because not only does the way he do it not represent stopping time at face value, because not only is Asura still moving, and he doesn't even slow down time consistently, as you Asura are still able to react to him when he pops back to go about attacking you, and even in some occasions Asura cannot even react to this. So I would even say this is an indefinite attack, or him possibly being, inaccessible, able to react to somebody in the mixed time skip of time and distorting time, or even a God that's beyond time, being immeasurable. I think Infinite is very much more concrete and consistent, and stretching to those bars is unbelievably just wank beyond compare. But besides that, if it isn't obvious, this man Asura gets entirely demolished most of the time, and there's multiple reasons for this. Okay, their speed is the obvious thing. This man Tarnished has a lot more concrete, consistent, and more reliable quantifiableness to conclude him to be easily inaccessible. He scales the beings that are beyond time, or a mixed bag, are able to exist in finite time, and time holds no effect to them. They're able to exist when time is not of the essence, and actually scales to more mixed probable case of possibly scaling to mixed notion beyond most different qualms of that type of speed. And as well, even if you want to argue that this man Asura is of a low M, higher mixed stretch in the case of, universal, even though the Tarnished scales the beings that multiple times can attack a universal body, literally defeats concepts and conceptual beings that literally rival and or a notion of threat to gods and or the entire concept of life in the lands between. He should be undeniably consistently very much on these levels. And if you argue that Asura is multiversal, yes, on a face value AP stand, Asura would have him done in. But he can never attack the Tarnished. And the Tarnished has multiple things that bypass normal convictional durability and have ways from mixed mental, from different mix-up of spells. Has obviously the Black Blade, aka Destined Death. He has Frenzied Flame. He has multiple forms demonstrated on screen that can give the very much conclusion of him way beyond the case of this man Asura multiple times over. He also, simply put, again because of speed, can mix up multiple ways to entrap Asura, to confine him with multiple different uses of different concepts, multiple weaponry that he could take from base game, DOC, and even stretch Night Rain. The Tarnished is just so much of a whoppy-doo Swiss Army knife, and could swarm this guy with so much shit that this dude has no argument to be able to push past. Even with his ridiculous rage and wrath, there's a lot of arguments that even if you want to say his wrath could allow him to push past some of the mixed mental gymnastics, targeting of mixed take of the soul, and different conceptual mixed bag erasure from Destined Death not fully working. He has no true full counters to this. So if he actually gets, touched up one time and gets the eventual setup for this man Tarnished to grab him or inflict him with a great splurge of Frenzied Flame, this could slowly decay his spirit and bring him to death. He also has multiple different things that attack on a way more distinctful level, and because consistently I think he is more on concreteness to be universal, even though distorting time and attacking on a higher stench mixed bag of the universal mixed touch does not actually hold weight to this man, Asura, because they're dead even on that. There's very much consistency to undoubtedly say that the Tarnished would be able to just to mix him up way more. And even though at face value durability, the Tarnished could not hurt him, because if you stretch the multiversal thing, everything I said before and everything I can show on screen, everything that is, applicable, would prove that he's just way beyond that. There's also just a bunch of different forms, like I said, that could give him way more weapons, could give him way more obstacles, give him way more token of this and this. It's also the fact that if you want to say that Asura cannot die, you can say the same thing for the Tarnished, but Asura can actually die more conventionally and has a long-lasting arguable take to die. So the Tarnished could kill him in these ways, and even though, yes, Asura's, unlimited fury and rage would be so much of a booming wild escapades of not only, possible opposition for the Tarnished, never face anybody with that never-ending lust for hands and battle. The Tarnished can never die, and there's no possible way to say that Asura could take out the Tarnished, as the Tarnished grace is literally eternal and could never be defeated, and as showcased multiple times. Even if you want to argue Asura gets one hit off, even though again with the speed he shouldn't, and he could put him down, he won't put him down for long, and he will come back, he'll stack whatever he has, and he'll lay the multi-smackdown, fire, brimstone, porridge of cancer upon this man. And there's just so many techniques I can go on and on about that will entirely end-all insulate this man Asura as pretty much done deal in multiple occasions of fighting. So yeah, I mean, Asura loses most of the time, undeniable. It is very much, I feel like, a mid-diff for the Tarnished and most pit-for-pit convictional fighting. As again, the Asura that in question that we're talking about, being obviously after everything we said, wouldn't change anything. And even if you want to talk about Asura's forms, which don't get it twisted, him turning into a giant ass fucking primordial celestial being akin to Wizen and using all the greater mix much of mantra slash chi and other aspects would be a problem. The Tarnished can literally counter multiple of these odds, and he's faced people, even though yes, not as big as Asura when he gets in these forms, he's used to fighting people way bigger than him. I mean, he's literally the fucking height of Kai Cenat. But like, it's just not going to be funny. It's not going to be a fight, and it's going to be most likely GG's, obviously, most of the time. The only way I can see Asura, if you stretch winning, is if he, in fact, faces him with equal stats. AKA, fuck whoever is more durable, fuck the speed gap, we equal the stats. I think still the Tarnished for most of the time win. Again, his immortality is way more superior. This man Asura can die more convictionally, confidently, in the mix of a more physical perspective. He can put Asura down more times than not. And there's even an argument. If we compare how Mantra is seen in mixed stances of dualism of a form of soul and dualicism of the spirit, this man, reasonably, regardless of his rage, is so bombastically unrelenting, a whole hungry, ravenous, domination effect of his, rage gets so much of a everlasting hulking figure on this man, the Tarnished. This man, even with all his boundless form of fury, and fury being, again, uncomparable, unseen, right, unstoppable, the Tarnished has an eternal grace and multiple pack of different capabilities from grace that would allow him to more easily and seamlessly just put down the famed demigod that pushed beyond every obstacle for the love of his daughter. I see the Tarnished are no renown, cutting him down to size with multiple things, makes a frenzied flame, putting the pressure on him from Black Flame. If you think you possibly, put in a great scenario setup to get around him, use Death Room, use anything that you could think of. I think this fight will be quick and will be easy. Simple as that. I hope you guys have enjoyed, though. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. If you are new here, please leave a like, share, subscribe, comment. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let me know any more things that you'd like to go and see and or talk about. If you disagree with this video, even if you actually want to debate it, please hit me up on Discord at rpking3124. We'll be interested in actually having, a cohesive, cool debate if you actually want to go and do that. Besides that, though, I love y'all. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, mommy. Love y'all.